And now, only on KGRA Radio, this is the Starborn Connection.
So without further ado, I'd like to say hello, Susie. How are you today?
Hello. Welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you for making me a VIP. That's pretty awesome.
Susie's my mentor.
Aw.
VIP guests get the option of calling up and saying, I need to be on this date, and we do it.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
I want to say happy birthday to Bill. Happy birthday, Bill. I didn't know it was your birthday.
And well, since Susie, she was on a few months ago and we did a big long bio for her. So I thought she would, in case anybody's new coming on today, Susie can start and do a brief bio, and then we can go into the experiences of the retreat that just happened. So go ahead, Susie.
Sure. Okay, so I'm not used to doing my own bio, so this is interesting. I want to say, some people call me a healer, but I want to be very clear that I am a healer of myself. I heal myself. I do not heal you. You are the one who heals you. So I just want to clear that up. The other thing I'd like to share is that my soul mission is to create heaven on earth. That is my focus in my life. That is my world. That is where all of my energy goes. And so I do that in my way, and everyone that resonates with that does that in their way. And that's what I'd like to share about me.
So Susie, what is the new stuff you want to talk about?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I have to drink some water for this one. Okay. So I want to say that as I share this is my perspective and the way that I understand it so far. And I feel like this is the beginning of the understanding that there will be a deeper depth and a deeper expanse of this understanding. But I want to start sharing it now because people can start working with these different pieces for their ascension. A lot of people, a lot of light workers that I have observed or conversed with talk about ascension, and they talk about moving into the fifth dimension and how there's this very spiritual feel to everything, which I resonate with, and I understand where they're going with it. But a lot of light workers have a hard time being human. And I include myself in that, not so much now, but in parts of my journey. I've had a very rough human journey in a lot of ways, a lot of illness and sickness since I was an infant, off and on, until I was 28. So certainly I understand why light workers feel that way, because they're used to their home energies. Wherever they've come from in the universe, they would rather be in that vibration. It's safe, it's more comfortable, it's more joyful, it's lighter. Being on this planet, we've come into a lot of density. But that's what makes the mastery of being human an essential part of the ascension process. You can call it ascension, you can call it descension, whatever word you choose to use around it. The idea is the same, that in order to ascend, we need to master our human aspects. And so when I say human aspects, what I'm referring to is our physicality, our physical human body, our organs, our breath, our circulatory system, everything physical about us that's human. We need to master our mental body, our intellect, our mind, our thoughts, the way we think. That piece, that mental body, is part of our humanity, part of being human. We need to master our emotional body. to learn how to feel what we feel. Having an emotional body is part of being human. There's no way around this part. And for ultra-sensitive beings like myself and many other light workers out there, it can be really challenging to feel what we feel, because we feel the depth of our own feeling. We feel the depth of the collective feeling. We feel Gaia. We feel our star brothers and sisters. We just feel everything. And it can be very overwhelming. And it can also be very powerful. And until we learn how to feel what we feel, expand our emotional range, and integrate all of our emotions, we're leaving a part of ourselves out. And this was a lesson that I recently learned. I'll share a little bit more about that. I'm just going to talk about the fourth piece of being human, and that's the spiritual body. And I'm including a bunch of stuff in the spiritual body. The soul, our higher self, our I am presence, our spirit, our energy, your energetic bodies, our aura, anything unseen that is palpable to some and not to others, but it's part of us for sure. And so those four pieces, the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual, we as humans need to learn how to integrate all those aspects of our humanity, how to really actually fully embody our energy and ourselves. And, there's no shortcuts around this. People want to perhaps spiritual bypass certain things. People talk about getting rid of the ego, and if we're going to be human and ascend as humans, we need to integrate our ego, put it in service to our soul missions, to our hearts, and things of that nature. We can't throw a piece of ourselves away, whether it's the ego or one of our bodies or an emotion or whatever. We can't ignore any parts of ourselves. We can't not deal with any parts of the shadow. It's all part of being human. And if we want that ascension experience, if that's what we're creating, then we need to look at everything. We can't leave anything out. And so that's a lesson that I thought I understood. But I recently had an experience of my body expressing to me that I needed to feel anger. And, as I would consider myself, fairly spiritually evolved. And I had come up against this anger thing before, and I always felt like, I'll just send it love and compassion, and it's not really something I need to feel because it's not really who I am. I'm a loving being, and, I had all these things, right? All these understandings, maybe you could say. But there was anger that I had turned off when I was a small child. I turned that part of myself off. And I never, I'm not an angry person. Never really express anger. I get frustrated, but never go into anger, or certainly not rage, heaven forbid, But what happened with my body is that it was coming out through my skin, my forehead, and my neck, this energy of rage, this energy of anger. And it was perpetuating. And finally, I got clear that my body is telling me I need to feel this emotion. And I'll be honest, I was pretty terrified. I was pretty petrified of feeling it. I had ideas about what anger was because what I had witnessed from other people. My idea about anger was that it's mean and nasty and, destructive. And that's because that's what I had seen. That's how other people expressed it. And so I judged it. I judged it as something I wanted to be far away from. And so the process for me was letting my inner child, little Susie, letting her know that it was now safe for her to feel and experience anger, because I, as adult Susie, was there to make sure she would be okay through it all. And that was kind of like the tipping point, or the thing that shifted it for me. And then as I began to feel it, my experience of it was nothing like I had seen other people, like I had seen anger being expressed from other people. It was not mean. It was not nasty. And when I released the judgment, at the core, what I found was this incredible power that came from deep, deep within my being, deep within my womb, in fact. And since I have gotten in touch with that, some of the inflammation on my skin has cleared up. And that's been awesome, because that was pretty annoying. Just to live with. So I share that story to hone in the point that there are no spiritual bypasses in this journey of ascension. We really do have to address all aspects of ourselves. And when I say all aspects of ourselves, I'm also talking about our soul aspects. We are multifaceted beings. Parts of us exist in different realms and realities. And when we integrate our soul aspects, we integrate those parts and pieces of ourselves. And some of those pieces are, they're all connected to our humanity, because we are whole beings, but they're not necessarily integrated, meaning we haven't necessarily looked at each and every one of them and made them a conscious part of ourselves. So when we understand that we have these parts of ourselves, we can set the intention to integrate them. And some of our aspects are serving the light. For some of us, some of those aspects are serving the shadow. And so as we integrate these parts and pieces of ourselves, we have to be aware of the potential of what can happen. We could gain great power. We can gain great wisdom and insight. We can reignite our spiritual gifts. We can also bring into our experience trauma, or things that are more difficult for the aspects that are still serving the shadow. But what that does when we set the intention to integrate all those aspects, if we do have experiences of trauma or something that's not so pleasant to deal with, when we confront that and we deal with it, it's like neutralizing it, so that it is truly integrated and part of who you are, and it doesn't have power or control over you, and it's not somewhere out there doing its own thing. You now, as a human being, are in charge of it. And I might have mentioned this on the last show, I don't remember, but I set that intention for myself a couple of years ago, that from my human perspective, that I was going to be in charge of my ascension journey and integrating my soul aspects. And so what that means for me is that everything that I need to work out along my path back to source, that happens through my human aspect. So we're back to that human-centric part of ascension. Everything that needs to be cleared up karmically, everything that needs to be integrated from higher realms and higher planes, all of that happens in my human being and my humanity. So when I was going through this stuff with my skin, and it was just really miserable, and I was asking for ease and grace, and I was asking, is there a way that I don't have to feel this so much on the human level? And the answer immediately came back to me, well, you asked to put your human aspect in charge. You created this. I was like, oh, okay, got it.
Susie, I have a question, and it's kind of personal due to my own experience in my own personal life. Is this spirituality, by definition, being at peace with yourself and your surroundings? And, every individual, I think, we all have something in our past, maybe a mistake that we made. And I think that when you have to make the commitment to change, you have to take responsibility, you have to be honest with yourself. You may need to change your environment, in other words, maybe in a place that you live, or people that you're around. And I'm wondering, when you're having like this retreat setting and you're trying to get to this ascension with oneself, when a person may have negative attributes to them, like negative energy or past behavior, anxieties, whatever it may be, how is it where a person like that can be transformed in that group setting with all the help that they're getting from all those others that have all this positive energy? How can they make that transformation from the negative to the positive in that environment?
Yeah. Well, it's by their choice. Not everyone wants to do that. So first they have to want to do that. And they're probably not going to invest financially in themselves to come to the retreat if they don't have that as one of their intentions. Mm-hmm. So, if you're not willing to do the inner work, or the shadow work, as we call it, if you're not willing to do that work on yourself, you're probably not going to pay money to go somewhere to do that, That's my take on it. So, that happened to a degree. There was one person that was going through a really hard time, and that person decided to take some time and space away from the retreat and work it out on their own. And they created their own transformation. Now, they could have also chosen to stay with the group and have the transformation with the group. It's really up to, each one, how they choose to do it.
Right.
But the bottom line is that there is supportive, loving energy. And sometimes the positivity can be the thing that triggers people. Because if you're miserable and everyone else around you is positive and joyful and laughing, that amount of light coming at you can be so difficult to deal with, because it's shining and illuminating your shadow. And if you're having that experience of your shadow being illuminated and you don't quite want to see it, that is a really tough place to be. And I've been there, so I totally understand that. And so in that moment when that person was going through that, obviously I wanted them to stay with the group and be part of the retreat, but I also gave them their freedom to do what they felt best for them. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question,
Yes,
though?
and you know what? Because I've also heard theories that there are entities that draw a person's energy, their life essence. And I've spoken to numerous people that are in the field, and they say that a lot of people that are diagnosed with maybe mental illness or some other anxieties may be exhibiting symptoms of an entity that draws the positive energy. In other words, it makes them into that state. Are you familiar with any kind of thing like that in the work that you've done?
That is absolutely possible. That can be part of it. And it's also the understanding that that entity cannot come and connect with your energy unless you have some degree of that own energy within yourself. And that's the way I understand it. Someone else might tell you something different, but I'm giving you my perspective. So as for myself, as I've released imprints and implants and patterns and programs, I'm only able to release, externally what I release internally. And I was actually sharing this with Julia. She was describing her experience. Her external experience in her world now is beautiful and totally different. And it's because she's cleaned up what's inside. And so the outer reflects the inner.
Yes.
And so if someone is suffering from mental illness, it can be more challenging because they can be in a very fragile state or a state of unempowerment. But if they're willing to do the work, they can realize that what's imperative for them to do is to release and transmute any of those energies within themselves so that there's nothing externally for any entity to attach to.
Interesting.
And that's high-level mastery.
Thank you for answering that for me.
You got it. Yeah. I'm not saying that's easy work, and I'm not where I am today because I did easy work. I did the hard work on myself. I do the hard work on myself. But we all have that capacity for mastery. We've come to this planet with that capacity. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have that capacity. And that's actually something I want to touch on. So I was talking about soul aspects and how we're multifaceted beings, and when you integrate your aspects, you may need to integrate some shadow aspects and what can happen with that, and be ready, get your support system in place if you make the decision to integrate your soul aspect from your human perspective. And I do believe that is essential for human ascension, is to integrate your soul aspects. Now, there's also aspects that have amazing gifts and that are very powerful. And so you need to prepare yourself for that as well. And I'm actually going through that right now. There's a very powerful aspect coming in. And again, I don't remember if I talked about this last time I was on the show, but where I am now with that is that it feels like this aspect is hurtling towards me at the speed of light and cannot wait to get into my body. And my nervous system's kind of freaking out. It's like, whoa, this is so much energy. Oh my gosh, I can't, what? So I'm working with, my nervous system and stabilizing my being so that this aspect can fully integrate. So there are a lot of things to consider, and not everyone will go through this as intensely as I am. Because I am a teacher, I sometimes go through things this way so that I can provide teachings and create templates for people to go through it easier. By the way, I love my life. I'm, not complaining in any way. It's just sometimes really intense. So setting that intention to integrate our soul aspects can be very powerful and very empowering. And I also want to talk a little bit about, okay, I'm jumping around here. Let me refocus. Okay, so I've talked about the human part. There's so much more, you guys. There's so much more. This human-centric part of ascension. I talked about the human part, the physical body, mental body, emotional body, spiritual body, our multifaceted selves, integrating our soul aspects into our human aspect. And then we have planetary bodies, galactic bodies, universal bodies. We have our source. We have oneness and the source of all that is. And what I see a lot of light workers trying to do is jump straight to oneness. But they've missed pieces along the way. And so the oneness piece doesn't really work because it's not fully aligned. And so we need to align ourselves after we get that mastery of our human selves, align ourselves with our planetary bodies, our galactic bodies, our universal bodies, our multiversal bodies, our source, and then the source of all that is. So it's it's a fairly big task. but we're on this planet because that's what we came here to do. And ascension is not only human-centric, it's Earth-centric. Because Earth, planet Earth, we have here such a variety, such a depth, such an expanse of DNA, of, from all throughout the universe, maybe throughout the multiverse. All kinds of codes and templates here on this planet. What I've come to understand in my channeling with Prime Creator is that, certain planets carry different codes and templates. Certain star systems, certain galaxies, certain universes. And the human beings on planet Earth have come from all over the universe, perhaps even all over the multiverse. And we bring, as a collective, we bring those codes and templates from those other places. And some of us have traveled all over. And so we don't have necessarily one set of codes or DNA from one planet. We have it from multiple places throughout the multiverse or the universe or the galaxy, you know, depending on what your path has been. So planet Earth is very unique in that way. I don't know if there's another planet that has the variety, that has the diversity that we do. I'm not aware of that. I only know, so far what I'm sharing, I only know that planet Earth for sure has that. And that's why kind of all eyes are on planet Earth right now, because we do have that diversity of templates and DNA and codes and information that we've brought from all over. And so Ascension is also Earth-centric, because we on planet Earth are setting templates for Ascension. And once we get through Earth's ascension, then we can move into galactic ascension, and then universal ascension, and then multiversal ascension. It just kind of keeps going. So no pressure, you guys, you know. Gotta lighten it up a little, you know. This is good. But I want everyone to know how valuable they are, and that you're on this planet for a reason. And whether you're consciously aware of it or not, you do bring information from other places to this planet so that it can be placed into the collective DNA matrix, so that we can get, you know, this rich diversity for our ascension. And many of us here, in fact, are ascended masters that have taken human form. And I just had this really great session with a client where Prime Creator was telling this person that just because their name isn't in the Ascended Master card deck doesn't mean that they're not an Ascended Master. And I just thought that was the greatest thing. You know, there are some popular ones that have made it into the card decks. You know, everyone knows Ascended Master Lady Portia, Saint Germain, you know, whatever. But, you know, not everyone recognizes Ascended Master Julia Weiss and Ascended Master Michael Melton and, you know, Ascended Master Bill Skywatcher. So what we're going to be seeing now moving into the future is a remembering of who we are, those what you might call higher aspects of ourselves. And I only use the word higher because as humans we think in linear terms. And it's just, you know, due to the limitations of English language, it's a way to describe it. We're going to start remembering those aspects of ourselves, who we are as powerful beings, who we are as ascended masters. I got the understanding a little bit ago that, in fact, I have ascended from planet Earth before, but it was at a time on the planet where there wasn't as much density as there is now. And so the mastery that we're working with now is raising our vibrations and frequency while we're in this density. And that's a whole different ballgame than, you know, ascending from a planet that's, you know, ninth dimensional or love and light or whatever. You know, we're working with different energies here. So I think it's really important for everyone listening to understand how valuable you are. Everyone take a deep breath. It's important to understand the power that you have. You don't get the chance to take a human body unless there's a specific purpose for that. And I know some people will disagree with me on that, and that's okay. But even if the role is playing a shadow role, that's still a purpose. And that's still reason to take a human form, because we are still in the polarity matrix. We are still in the, polarity universe. The light and shadow does, play with each other in that way. So if you're here on this planet, you're here for a reason. It's not a random occurrence. You're not a lost soul that ended up here by some kind of mistake. You're here for a reason. And if you don't consciously know the reason, that's okay. You're still fulfilling your purpose just by your energy, your templates, your codes being in human form, expressing through your DNA, expressing through your human expressions. I don't know how many light workers really get that. I feel like if we all really got that, life could look a lot different. We could have our heaven on earth. And so that's what I'm working towards, is helping people understand how powerful they are in service to the light. Because when we really get how powerful we are, we can change things, and we can change things quickly. And I'm not even talking about, calling your representatives and marching in women's marches or whatever. I mean, you can do that if that's what you feel called to do. I don't have any judgment against that. But I'm saying just energetically, when we wake up and remember who we are, the energetic shift and the energetic ripples that come out of that spread across the globe. They ripple out into the galaxy. They ripple out into the universe. We are not alone on this planet, sequestered without any energetic exchange anywhere else in this universe. There's constant energetic exchange from this planet going out into the universe, going out into the multiverse. So we are way more powerful than we realize, and when we can come together in our power, we can really change things. And it starts with the energy. So let me just give an example. If you do feel called to do a women's march, for example, and you're going in there with a lot of hate and a lot of judgment, how much good do you think that's going to do? On the other hand, if you're feeling called to do that, and you do that with so much love for yourself, with so much love for those around you, with so much love even for what you're marching against, how do you think that can make a difference? People don't realize the power of their energy. I think if they did, they'd be making different decisions.
That's deep.
Oh, yeah. I can't do that surfacey thing, can I?
Everything you're saying is so deep. It's incredible. I'm just bringing it all in.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for receiving. I want to just check in to see if there's any questions so far.
So far, we haven't had any more.
Okay. Bill mentioned the word responsibility, actually, when he was asking his question. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Responsibility, this may be my belief system, but responsibility is something that we all need to take seriously as those of us especially who are aware, who do have a certain level of consciousness about how we can affect change. We have a responsibility to ourselves to do what we can with that knowledge and information. And I'm not saying that if you know things, you have to produce a radio show or you have to create a YouTube channel and start sharing. I'm not saying that. I'm saying take responsibility for your energy. Take responsibility for the choices you make, how you live your life. That goes further than you think it does. Again, going back to the energy, when you take responsibility for yourself, you put yourself in an energetic position where you are centered and your energy emanates from you. I mean, either way, your energy emanates from you. But when you take responsibility and put yourself in that centered position with it, then the energy emanating from you can affect change in a very powerful way. If you're not taking responsibility for your energy and it's leaking all over the place and you're distracted by this piece of chaos or that piece of news or whatever, you're creating more of that. And so I believe we have a responsibility to get ourselves in line. You know, we have precious little time on this planet. 100 years goes by in the snap of a finger.
Very quickly.
So I just want to invite everyone to make the most of every moment. And I'm not saying you have to work 24/7. I take a ton of downtime for myself, lots of self-care and nourishment. And I take responsibility for my health and my body and for my energy. And that's one of the ways I do it, with lots of self-care. So there's no judgment around how you taking responsibility expresses itself in your life. It's the idea of you understanding the power that you have, you understanding that your being is emanating your energy 24/7, whether it's your energy or energy that you have allowed to be in your being that's not you, that's emanating from you. And so to take responsibility to clean everything up, to address the shadow, to get yourself in alignment, you know, all of these mastery concepts that we're talking about tonight.
Right. You know, Susie, I think I'm sure there are people out there that really are so attached to what's going on in the world and politics and Trumpism and Hillaryism and all this other stuff that they find it really difficult to disconnect from that, because for years and years it's been kind of pervasive through their lives, and you know, the TV stations, the news, they all try to push this stuff so that they get ratings and reactions. What does someone do? You know, how in your opinion, can people disconnect?
First, to understand that it is an addiction. That when you engage in that energy, there is a connection that you make with that energy to yourself that becomes addicting. And this responsibility piece says, I'm going to change where I put my focus. I'm going to turn the TV off. I'm going to stop looking at, you know, internet sites or whatever. And again, I'm not talking about sticking your head in the sand. I'm not talking about ignoring what's going on. You can have a well-rounded awareness of what's happening and still choose your focus. But by default, many of these people have become addicted to the information because physiologically, meaning in the physical body, there is a physical reaction that occurs when you engage in this information. And the more you engage with it, the more it strengthens the neurons and the brain connections and the nervous system connections in your physical body. And so we have to set that intention to rewire ourselves. And we have to take control of where we put our focus. And when you change where you put your focus, and when you rewire your DNA and your nervous system, you can break that addiction. And so you have to give your body, because it is a physiological occurrence, you have to give your body a different physiological occurrence. So for me, I love the feeling of being hydrated. I love the feeling of having my bare feet on the ground. I love essential oils. You know, those are my addictions, if you will. And
a lot healthier than being addicted to CNN.
Yeah, you know, I had an anxiety addiction. I had a fear addiction. But I recognized it. I confronted it. And I did the inner work. I disciplined myself. People don't like that word, but that's what's required. I disciplined myself to change things, to rewire myself. And I think it is really important for people to understand that this is an addictive thing and to treat it like an addiction And when you're breaking an addiction, you need to give your body what it really desires. So your nervous system wants that stimulation. Okay, give it healthy stimulation. Breathe in clean air, put your feet on the ground, drink pure water, give it healthy, you know what I'm saying? Give it healthy stimulation. And that will override, when you give it enough of the healthy stimulation, that will override the addictive stimulation that you've been giving it.
That's great. I'm sure a lot of people wanted to hear that because, you know, I don't know, I think especially in the past couple of years, there have been two movements, one in the direction that you're subscribing to, and the other in the direction of being so wrapped up in what's going on in the world, they forget that this is a finite situation. You know, there's so much more going on. So I think hopefully that helps some people.
Well, and also those people that are addicted to this kind of information are most likely not understanding how powerful they are.
Yeah.
Again, because if they understood, they would say, oh, just by shifting my energy, I can ripple out a whole different vibration that changes the entire planet, you know?
Yeah. And I can imagine them doing that and getting scared, you know? And because they don't know what it is. They're so used to being attached to, this reality that if they feel anything else, it's scary or foreign. So,
yeah.
You know, and they have to give themselves a chance.
Yeah, you know, let me speak to that actually. Being with your power, being with your the light aspects of your multifaceted being can be scary because, again, the light illuminates the shadow. And so when you're with your light, it shows you your shadow. And that can be very terrifying.
Yeah.
Because you see things in yourself that you didn't realize were there or that you've been scared to look at and address. And so, you know, being compassionate with yourself in this process is very, very important.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I also look at the addiction to CNN and Fox and all that stuff, the politics, as polarity. You know, they're there to create a polarity. And of course, we're so polarized now in our political beliefs, and religion has gotten crazy. And the whole point of really, for me, the ascension process and moving heaven and having heaven on earth is to bring everything together. And you were saying, Susie, like, you know, it is a hard process, but honestly, for me, it really came very natural. It like, not watching the TV, it just happened. I mean, there are other things that are harder, I'm sure, for some people, but getting over that polarization thing was, I think maybe when I just started the Creation Temple in October was when I started to not really care about what's going on in Washington. And yes, it doesn't mean I'm not aware of what's going on, and it doesn't mean I'm not doing anything about it. I am. I'm changing myself because people have to realize their sovereignty and their power. And I felt completely helpless for 55 years at that time. It just seemed like every time, you know, a regime ended, a new regime came, and it became just as bad as the last. And the news got worse and worse. Greed got worse and worse. And then you start to polarize with your beliefs and and what happened was when I started doing the meditation before I even met Susie, and I started to deal with my feelings of jealousy, I started to really meditate and pray on the things that really bothered me. And I was led to the many teachers and the many people that, you know, resonated with what I wanted, this heaven on earth. And it just seems like every step of the way, actually going to the retreat has really made it easier for me, I think, because there was so much positive energy and so much love. So surrounding yourself with people of like mind. But if you're not able to do that, just, you know, what you're bringing in all day, what you're watching all day, what kind of videos are you watching, doing exercise, dancing. You know, I love to dance, so sometimes when I'm depressed, I just dance and I raise my vibration. But I'm no longer part. Like, the other day, my girlfriend took me out to lunch and she was talking about Trump, and I'm looking at her like, I'm sorry, but I'm just, you know, I'm so beyond that. I just can't handle the conversation. Let's talk about the retreat. And she did, you know, she like, you know, and I changed the whole conversation. And in the old days, I wouldn't even get, you know, most of my friends are pretty loud and pretty intense. And I just kind of go, you know, nobody seems to hear. But they were listening to me. And so the journey, you know, a lot of these things, what doesn't serve you anymore falls away. And what serves you for the greater good starts appearing.
Hey, Julia?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. It's 10 of, and if somebody has a real important question that they're dying to ask. Can I present it real quick?
Absolutely.
Yeah. From the chat room, the question is, how do you deal with the vast gap between where your consciousness is and the general population of the planet, like the isolation? How do you deal with that?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
And I would say I have a pretty huge gap. So, you know, I talk about the word focus. I'm focused. I'm focused on my mission. And it's because I sense such a huge gap that it actually fuels my focus even more. You know, if everyone was in the consciousness that I'm in, there wouldn't be a whole lot for me to do. And I don't say that from an ego's perspective. That's just, you know, we'd all be loving each other and having a beautiful life here on this planet. So for me, that gap gives me focus for my mission. And I'll bring in the word discipline here too. It's a discipline to learn how to hone your focus. It's a practice to learn how to focus on what you want to create, what you want to see around you. Another piece is allowing yourself to be vulnerable and asking for support, to create a support system for yourself. And this is why I created the Creation Temple, so that people wouldn't have to be isolated. Because I hear from so many people, you know, I'm a light worker in Israel, I'm a light worker in Japan, I'm a light worker, you know, wherever, all across the globe, and my family doesn't understand me, and no one, you know, I don't have anyone in my life like you. I don't have anyone in my life who understands these ideas and concepts, and they all think that I'm crazy. And that's one of the reasons why I created the Creation Temple, so people like that could come together and meet their soul family and get that support and get the nurturing and nourishment from from our online gatherings.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're someone who, you know, absolutely cannot afford even the scholarship level, to set that intention to create your support system. I did it from scratch. Listen, you guys, I grew up Mennonite. I grew up Christian. What I'm talking about is way outside of where my family is. So if if I can do it, you can do it. And I created everything I have in my life, everyone I have in my life. I created all of it. Yeah, it's a co-creation for those, you know, people in my life who agree to be with me and all of that. But I set that intention very early on to create a support system, because I just had a sense and a feeling of what I was getting myself into. And I knew that if I was really going to go full on into my expansion, that I would need a lot of support around me. And so that's what I've done. And it's taken me 12 years to be where I am from when I first woke up. But it doesn't have to take you that long. You know, everyone's at a different place in their journey. Everyone has different wiring. Everyone has a different place in their soul journey. So, you know, don't compare yourself to me. I'm just sharing as an example of what's possible. You know, if you want to create it now, create it now.
Sounds good.
And I will say this, that creating a support system for yourself does require vulnerability. You can't hide parts of yourself and get the support you need, support you deserve, by shutting off certain parts of yourself or by keeping them hidden. As we're moving into fifth dimensional energy, as we're integrating fifth dimensional energy, that is a realm and a dimension where nothing is hidden. And so if you want to be in that heavenly experience that some people call the fifth dimension, you need to expose all parts of yourself.
Very good.
Okay.
I seriously think that was a really good answer.
Oh, thank you.
No, really.
Susie says it like nobody else can. It really hits you deep inside.
Oh. Well, Julia, you receive it very deeply, and I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was very, very blessed because I was led to you after a meditation. And, you know, I already had this idea of ascension. I already knew about it. But Susie really helped me with the process of what I needed to do. Because I think all of us have bits and pieces of the knowledge. And there's so many different types of light workers, different teachers, and you know, some people might resonate with somebody else, but you know, I was lucky enough to resonate with Susie, and it was just easy for me to do the work because I was ready. I was definitely ready, and it's a process. Like, it may be harder for other people, but I just can't believe, Susie, how 2 hours went by so fast. And
I'm telling you, we enter a time warp at 10:01.
I'm in the fifth dimension either, but
there you go.
I'm so glad that. Yeah, I'm so glad you're with us because, you know, I want to get the message out to people. And I thank Michael so much for allowing the idea of ascension to be on the show. And, you know, it's great to get different people on with different ideas. But I resonate so much with you. Definitely, Susie.
Well, you know, Julia, I think everybody, regardless of what I believe or anybody, everybody deserves a voice. And that's what we provide.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
So
I encourage people to go with whom they resonate. Like, if you don't resonate with me, that's fine. But find a mentor or a teacher or whatever you want to call it. Find someone with whom you do resonate so you can move forward in your journey.
And if we're all doing it, we can get our heaven on earth. We can start seeing actual things happen. And so I want to thank Susie for coming on board tonight for the second time. She's our VIP guest now.
Third time.
Three.
Third time. You're right. Third time. Can you believe it? Oh, that's right. Third time. Mm-hmm. First time she channeled Prime Creator. Yeah. And I want everybody to know, I think next week we're going to have Don Daniels. He is retired now, but he was an airline pilot, and he has had many experiences. ET's space, he tells me they're space cousin. That's the correct term, space cousin experience. And he wrote a book called How to Be a Cosmic Citizen, and it's all about ascension as well, and heaven on earth through the Space Cousin message. So I want to thank everybody and thank all our listeners. It was a pleasure, and it's so great. I hope you have a great weekend. Bye, Michael, Bill, Susie.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.